Hello and welcome. This is Biotech versus the World, Indigenous Intellectual Property Rights by Sean Federmeyer. For thousands of years, plants have served as the backbone of civilization. People have used them for everything from building materials to food and even medicine. Currently, roughly a quarter of medicines are either directly sourced from or are based on plant extracts. In the past 30 years, there has been a tremendous surge in biotechnology companies mounting expeditions to search for novel plants in order to find and extract useful chemicals. Proponents of this search refer to it as biodiversity prospecting, while its critics have dubbed it as biopiracy. The controversy stems from the benefits to the companies versus the lack of benefits to the communities where these so-called discoveries take place. Most of these plant discoveries only happen because the companies were led to them by traditional local knowledge, and these communities very rarely see any form of recompense for the exploitation of their intellectual property. The idea that you can patent and therefore own the sole rights to a plant or other living organism is an alien one in most of the world. Case in point, in India it is not possible to patent any agricultural or medicinal product, as they are viewed to be beneficial to all and therefore belong to everyone equally. The ability to patent a living thing is a Western phenomenon rooted in a 1980 Supreme Court case. In the case of General Electric versus Chakrabarty, Chakrabarty was seeking to patent a modified bacteria that could digest oil. The court decided in favor of GE, granting them the patent on the basis that there was a distinction between products of nature and man-made inventions. The vague wording of this decision has opened a Pandora's box of justifications that transnational corporations use to patent plant products, including extraction methods and uses that are merely modernized versions of those used by generations of native people. The impacts of corporate greed on indigenous communities cannot be overstated. Large biotech companies have been able to use the patents on biological products to dominate and undermine local economies. This often inflates the price in markets because farmers are not allowed to collect and store seed for the next crop without paying royalties and will usually end up buying entirely new seed every year. A great example of this is Monsanto and Bt cotton in India. Bt cotton is a genetically altered organism that produces its own pesticide and was used by Monsanto to illegally force their way into the cotton market in India in 1998. At first, they gave the seed away by trading it to farmers for their seed in order to show the superiority of their product. Within a few years, Monsanto had created a monopoly on cotton seed, and prices for seed had skyrocketed from 5 to 10 rupees per kilo to 1,600 rupees for less than half of a kilo of seed. Companies like Monsanto ensure their monopolies with strong-arm legal tactics like the numerous lawsuits throughout the Americas, including a $2.2 billion suit in Brazil against farmers on royalties for saved seeds. The most infamous case for IP theft exploitation from native peoples comes from the neem plant. Neem is a fast-growing, hardy evergreen tree that grows in the arid regions of India. The plant has been revered for its uses for thousands of years and has more recently become the symbol of indigenous knowledge and intellectual property. Traditionally, the plant has been used for everything from medicines to toothbrushes and even contraceptives. There are various mechanical and chemical processes for different extractions that have been used by the natives for generations. In 1994, a company named W.R. Grace found the neem tree and learned of its various uses from native people. Not long after, they began to file patents on these uses and so-called new extraction processes. In a letter to the U.S. Patent Office, Indian scientists argued that nothing that Grace was doing was novel and that Indian researchers and companies were using it long before Grace came into the picture. These arguments went unheard, and to date, more than 50 patents have been filed in the U.S. by various biotech firms on intellectual properties that were never theirs to begin with. There may be some hope on the horizon. In 2007, during the UN 61st Assembly, they proposed Resolution 295, the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. This resolution put forth definitions of what constitutes an Indigenous people for the first time, and provided for self-determination and rights for those people on the international stage. The glaring issue with this resolution is that even though it was ratified by the majority of member nations, it is not a legally binding document. It has been used as argumentation in several lawsuits and legal actions worldwide, but it holds very little sway over multinationals like Monsanto and Grace. As a worldwide community, we have to strive to push these ideals even further and make them legally binding to protect those who are being exploited by the system. As anthropologists, we thrive in liminal spaces. We are neither purely science nor purely humanities. We do not just observe, nor do we fully convert to the cultures we study. We can exist as a bridge between two worlds, with one foot in each and striving for the betterment of both. We need the advancements made by biotech companies to improve life for everyone, but it need not come at the expense of exploitation of indigenous intellectual property. We can advocate for and teach those we study about things like intellectual property, while also speaking out to those in power and demanding justice for those communities. We have the power, the voice, and the resources to help rectify these injustices and set about creating a more equitable, yet still profitable, future for all of those involved.